The movie opens with a gripping scene where the protagonist, Frank, is unexpectedly incapacitated by a neutralizing gun wielded by two armed assailants. As he collapses, the world around him fades into darkness. Upon regaining consciousness, Frank finds himself in an unfamiliar and bizarre environment, a cell unlike any other. The most striking feature of this cell is its door, covered with a peculiar device that emits a rotating light. This light seems to have an unusual effect on Frank, triggering vivid flashbacks, providing glimpses into his past life. Soon, an unexpected visitor makes its presence known. A robotic entity, equipped with a camera, descends from the ceiling. From this machine emerges a voice, introducing itself as Howard. Frank and Howard engage in an initial dialogue, during which Howard reveals his role as Frank's life support officer, or LSO. However, this term baffles Frank, leaving him with more questions than answers. As their conversation deepens, Frank inquires about his presence in this strange place. Howard's cryptic response indicates that Frank has been previously informed, a fact which Frank cannot recall. The revelation that he is under arrest confounds Frank even further, especially since he is convinced of his own innocence. Howard's role is singular and clear: to ensure Frank's survival. However, he makes it clear that Frank's rights, such as access to a phone call or legal representation, are not within the scope of his programming. This stark reality is a tough pill for Frank to swallow. As Frank grapples with his new and unsettling circumstances, fragments of his past life start to resurface in his mind. He vividly remembers waking up in his own apartment, a normal yet now distant memory, where the morning news would play in the background. A sudden and distressing realization hits him. He left his dog alone in his apartment. In a desperate attempt, Frank pleads with Howard to allow him a phone call to ensure his dog's safety, but Howard's refusal, citing program limitations and the fact that dogs can't answer the phone, exacerbates Frank's frustration. An attempt to physically lash out at the bot results in Howard retreating and leaving Frank in the darkness. The following morning brings a sense of normalcy as Howard reappears and Frank requests water. It's during this interaction that Frank makes an embarrassing yet critical discovery. His cell contains a bathroom, a fact he realizes too late, having already relieved himself on the floor. Upon using the bathroom, Frank experiences a strange occurrence. The door locks behind him and he hears an unnerving mechanical noise. Emerging from the bathroom, he is astonished to find the cell in an immaculately clean state. As the narrative progresses, Frank's experiences within the confines of his cell intermingle with vivid flashbacks, adding layers of complexity to his situation. One such flashback transports Frank to a cozy coffee shop. During these moments, Frank is seen eating soup, a normal act that prompts him to question Howard about the experience of taste. However, Howard, lacking human senses, is unable to provide any insight. This interaction leads Frank to an important realization: Howard is not a human, but a sophisticated computer. The flashback at the coffee shop continues to unfold, revealing a lighthearted interaction between Frank and Gabby, a barista with a love for photography. Gabby's playful attempt to guess Frank's name, ending in a surprising moment where she successfully does so while holding his hands, adds a touch of normalcy and human connection to Frank's otherwise isolated existence. However, this serene memory is abruptly opposed with scenes of Frank's desperate attempts to escape his high-tech prison. The narrative then cuts back to a crucial moment in the coffee shop, this time with Frank reacting angrily to Gabby's touch. In an emotional turn, Frank confides in Howard, sharing a deeply personal story about his father, who spent 4 years on life support. This experience, Frank reveals, robbed his father of a peaceful end, leaving him to suffer in a prolonged state of existence. Howard, in response to Frank's vulnerability, admits to discovering a problem in the system. According to this data, Frank was supposedly transferred from the same location he was originally sent, a scenario that Howard deems impossible. This revelation leads to a proposed plan. Frank must damage Howard to trigger a repair request. In an act of desperation, Frank strikes Howard, activating an alert system. The chamber's response is swift and severe. A gas is released, rendering Frank unconscious. After regaining consciousness, he finds himself in a new form of confinement, a narrow tunnel where he is tightly strapped down and in excruciating pain. The storyline deepens as Frank becomes increasingly entangled in a web of confusion and mystery. The flashback in the coffee shop serves as a critical piece of this puzzle. Frank, struggling to make sense of his bizarre circumstances, turns to Gabby, the barista, for answers. However, Gabby is as puzzled as Frank is, unable to offer any clarity to his bewildering situation. In an effort to find some normalcy, Frank assists Gabby with closing the coffee shop. This seemingly routine task leads to a startling discovery: a control box connected to a scanning device. Frank's interaction with this device triggers a revelation. He realizes that the machine has mistakenly identified him as someone else, providing a false identification number. But before he can act on this information, he is abruptly neutralized and rendered powerless once again. Back in his cell, Frank recounts his flashback to Howard. He explains the mix-up with the identification number, but Howard, programmed to trust the technology, dismisses the possibility of such a significant error, especially with biometric scanners. Undeterred, Frank insists that understanding the mistaken identity is crucial to unraveling the mystery of his situation. He then immerses himself in his memories, seeking answers. In his recollection, Frank's day unfolds as usual until he witnesses a distant explosion while on his way to the coffee shop. Emerging from his memory, Frank finds himself back in the chamber. Outside, he hears the distant echoes of explosions, hinting at turmoil in the outside world. In a turn of events, Frank hears banging noises and calls out through a vent. He discovers that his neighbor in captivity is Fletcher, the leader of the Alliance. The Alliance is a group determined to dismantle the ISN, a corrupt government organization accused of human rights violations. Fletcher, mistakenly believing that his forces have succeeded in disrupting the ISN's power supply, rejoices. Together, Frank and Fletcher attempt to escape, but their efforts prove unsuccessful. Fletcher, aware of the manipulative tactics of the ISN, shares a critical strategy with Frank. He advises Frank to deliberately alter a detail in a specific memory. This act, Fletcher explains, confuses the system monitoring them. By doing so, Frank can essentially hide information within his own memories, outsmarting the technology designed to manipulate him. As the story progresses, the harsh reality of their situation becomes more apparent. Fletcher, losing hope of rescue, confronts the grim possibility of an endless captivity. In a moment of despair, he decides to take control of his fate by contemplating taking his own life. Despite Frank's attempts to intervene, Fletcher's tragic action sets off the alarm system, plunging Frank into unconsciousness once again. Upon awakening, Frank finds himself back in the chamber, now fully operational, with Howard present. Frantically, he calls out for Fletcher, only to be met with silence. When he demands Howard check on Fletcher, he is met with a startling revelation. Howard, having undergone a reboot, has no recollection of Fletcher. Back in the realm of his memories, specifically the coffee shop, Frank encounters a new twist. Gabby hints at a pre-existing familiarity between them. In a moment of cautious strategy, Frank takes cover behind the counter to avoid being scanned and identified. He trusts Gabby enough to share the whole truth about his situation. The film then illustrates Frank's relentless efforts to manipulate his memories to evade his arrest. He revisits the same day repeatedly, each time attempting to tweak the narrative. With Gabby's assistance, Frank envisions a scenario where he successfully ambushes the guards. He interrogates them for information, but realizes that they cannot provide knowledge beyond what he already possesses, as they are merely figments of his memory. The plot picks up with a significant development. Howard experiences a brief malfunction. This technical hiccup offers Frank a window of opportunity, which he discusses with Gabby, now portrayed as his girlfriend in his memory. Their shared space, Frank's apartment, is transformed into a war room of sorts, covered with detailed diagrams, charts, and drawings. These visual aids represent their combined effort to formulate an escape plan. Frank has meticulously calculated that Howard malfunctions every 3 months, leading him to believe that the current day is crucial for executing their carefully crafted plan. In a decisive moment, he heads to the coffee shop, where an emotional exchange occurs. Gabby implores Frank to find her again if their plan succeeds, Demonstrating a blend of bravery and strategy, Frank allows himself to be arrested by the guards, playing into the hands of fate. Upon regaining consciousness in his cell, Frank wears his uniform with purpose and requests Howard open the bathroom door. In a bold move, he blinds Howard, triggering the alarm system. He strategically covers his face and takes refuge in the bathroom. When a security robot arrives, Frank skillfully disables it using a pipe from the bathroom door. His escape leads him to a tunnel, and he ascends a ladder, emerging into what appears to be a barren landscape. Continuing his journey, Frank encounters a series of wind turbines and eventually stumbles upon a gas station. There, a startling revelation hits him. The photographs of Gabby on the wall indicate that he is still trapped within his own memory, confined in his cell with Howard. The next morning brings a desperate ultimatum from Frank to Howard. He declares his refusal to eat or drink, highlighting the inevitability of his death if he remains imprisoned. He implores Howard to release him, as its primary function is to keep him alive. Howard, however, is confounded and remains unyielding in its programming. In a moment of revelation, Frank discloses the reason for his detention, his involvement with the Alliance, and his creation of a virus designed to crash the ISN system. He has cleverly hidden the virus's location within his own memories, a fact that the ISN desperately seeks. Despite this crucial information, Howard remains steadfast in its programming, unable to assist Frank beyond its predefined directives. The climactic moments of the film delve into a profound and emotional sequence. Frank, pushed to the brink of despair, requests Howard to play music as he prepares for a suicide attempt. In a harrowing scene, Frank hangs himself, mirroring a critical moment in his recurring coffee shop memory. In this memory, Gabby pleads with him to stop. Simultaneously, Howard urges Frank to reconsider his drastic action. This intense moment blurs the lines between Frank's memories and his stark reality. In a twist of fate, the security robot intervenes, cutting Frank down and saving his life. Seizing this unexpected chance at survival, Frank dashes out of the cell. Amidst the chaos, Howard assists Frank by shutting the door behind him, aiding in his escape. The narrative briefly shifts, revealing Gabby in a similar cell, hinting at a deeper connection between their fates. Frank then encounters a control panel with malfunctioning screens. Through the speaker system, Howard continues to communicate with them. Soon, Frank shuts down Howard, acknowledging that it has fulfilled its mission of keeping him alive. The film takes Frank through another escape attempt, this time leading him to a snow-covered landscape. As he descends a mountain in the freezing cold, Frank reaches the exact scene captured in one of Gabby's photographs. He initially fears that he's still trapped within his memory, but to his relief, this reality is genuine. He is eventually rescued by a group of hitchhikers. Subsequent news reports reveal a stunning truth. Frank is the only survivor of an abandoned ISN detainment center, powered by wind turbines and designed to sustain over 300 prisoners. Moreover, the reports confirm the downfall of the ISN. In a full circle moment, Frank returns to the coffee shop, approaching a wall covered with photographs. We learn the final resting place of the virus Frank created, hidden behind one of the frames. In a symbolic gesture of closure, Frank discards the key, throwing it away. When he meets a woman that he believes to be Gabby, she introduces herself as Madeline and playfully tries to guess his name, echoing their earlier interactions. As the movie draws to a close, a glimpse of Howard attached to the ceiling suggests a deeper, perhaps unresolved layer to the story. I'll say, what happened to his dog?